Those among you who are fishermen know what my life has been like. That is until I met the carpenter from Nazareth. From then on, my life has been completely changed. That day had started like any other day. I was with my brother Andrew at the side of Lake Galilee for a catch. Further down, two of our friends, James and John, together with their father Zebedee, were mending their nets. At one point, I saw a stranger walking on the shore, and he stopped and he looked at us and he said,
"Follow me, and I will make you fishers of people."
These were strange words. I didn't know what he meant by fishers of people. I don't know what made me follow him. What he said, or is it the way he looked at me? I'm not sure. I know I could not refuse him. I followed him that day. I kept following him for 3 long years. In fact, I never stopped following him, except for once. And I'll tell you about that later. Together with Andrew, James and John, and others joined us. We were 12. We followed him. We followed that man, Jesus. We followed him, often without understanding him. He said things that touched our hearts. He spoke in a way that no one spoke before. He did things that puzzled us very often. He was so much like us in many ways, yet so different. I must admit that I myself was at a loss to make out often what he said and what he did. One day I thought I am not meant to be his disciple. My friends and I were washing our net on the shore. There was a large crowd pressing around him. They all wanted to hear him talk about God. He asked us to use our boat. Then he asked me to pull the boat a little into the water. And I did. When he finished teaching, he asked me to throw the net away into the water for a catch. I told him we had been fishing the whole night without catching anything. Perhaps within myself I thought, and he's a carpenter, he's telling me about fishing. But again, I could not refuse. But I simply said, if he says so, I will pay out the net. You won't believe this. We caught so much fish, and we had to call our friends in the nearby boat to come and help us. And both our boats were filled to a sinking point. It was at that time that I said, "Leave me, Lord, I am a sinful man." I was completely overcome. And he simply said,
"Do not be afraid. From now on, it is people you will catch."
So I stayed with him. I brought back the boat to the shore and I left everything. Have you ever seen anyone commanding the wind and the sea to be quiet? I have seen it myself. Jesus did that. One day, we were crossing the lake and Jesus had been teaching whole day long and he was so tired. He was sleeping in the boat, his head resting on the pillow. All of a sudden there was a big storm. The wind was blowing the waves so high. We could hardly throw the water away from the boat. And we were so terrified. And Jesus was sleeping. So we could not hold ourselves any longer. So we went to him and said, "Master, do you not care that we are going down?" And he got up and with great authority he said to the wind and to the sea,
Quiet now. Be calm.
And all was calm again, as if there never had been a storm at all. But then he turned to us and said,
Why are you so frightened? How is it that you have no faith?
"What would you have answered?" We couldn't say anything. We only asked each other, "Who is this man?" Even the wind and the sea obey him. Another day, he took the three of us, John, James, and myself. He often took the three of us with him. On that day, he took the three of us with him to a mountain to pray. While he was praying, he was completely transformed. His clothes became so white. His face was shining in a so unusual way. And he was speaking with Moses, our great leader in the past, and with Elijah the prophet. The three of us were very sleepy, but we kept awake. And we saw him in his glory. I didn't understand what was happening. I said, "Master, it is wonderful for us to be here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." I must admit, I didn't know what I was saying. Then we heard a voice saying,
"This is my son, the chosen one. Listen to him."
And then Jesus was with us alone again. I could tell you so many other things about him. Another day, John, James, and myself were with him again in the house of a Jewish leader. And he brought back to life that man's little daughter who had died. I saw it happening with my own eyes. But that was too much for our leaders, the scribes and the Pharisees, and they decided he should die. And they took the means for that. You have heard the story, I'm sure. One part of it I'm really ashamed of. While I was waiting in the courtyard or the palace for the high priest, where they were questioning Jesus, a servant girl came and asked me whether I was one of the followers of that man. And I said, I did not even know him. And I did that 3 times. When I look back on it, I cannot believe that I was such an awful coward. Imagine, I was with him 3 years, and I swore that I did not even know him. I wept bitterly. I felt such a terrible sorrow. I couldn't forgive myself, but he did. The Jewish leaders had their way. They had him crucified by the Roman authorities. After he got back to life, one day on the seashore, he asked me 3 times whether I loved him. You can imagine how I felt. I could remember so well the 3 times I denied him. But he never reproached me for anything at all. Instead, he put me in charge of the other believers. That's the kind of man he is. If ever you have done something that you cannot forgive yourself, let him forgive you. As soon as he sees that you are sorry, he will forgive you and he will forget all about it. I'm telling you, this is the kind of man he is, the kind of God he is.